Okay, so let's do another problem. Let's take a look and see. Okay, so we have something here working with imaginary numbers, complex numbers, imaginary numbers. So I equals square root of -1, and I plus 1 divided by 1 minus I equals A plus BI, where A and B are real numbers. What are the values of A and B? Right, so let's just write this out here. I'm just going to write the 1 plus I, and I'm going to write it as a fraction. So I'll have 1 plus I, right? I'll put this in parentheses, and then divided by 1 minus I. Okay. So when you have a situation like this, when you have a complex number in the denominator, a good way to get rid of that, complex number in the denominator, to get rid of the imaginary part, is to multiply by the conjugate, right? So you get the conjugate by taking the opposite of the imaginary part. So I'm just going to take this bottom part here and find the conjugate, right? So it would be 1. Now instead of negative, it would be plus. So plus I, right? So if I'm multiplying that bottom part by 1 plus I, then to stay true, I have to multiply the numerator by that, right? In other words, if I'm multiplying 1 plus I over 1 plus I, I'm basically multiplying by 1. You can always do that, right? So let's see what happens when you multiply that out. Well, let me just do I'll do the numerator part first here. So 1 times 1 is 1, right? And then 1 times I, so we get plus I, right? Plus another I, right? I times 1 is I, so we have another I, right? And then we have I times I, which is just -1, right? So let me just, sorry, I should have written -1 there. So that's -1, right? And the bottom part, well, you have 1 times 1, right? Which is just 1, right? And actually, it's when you multiply it, basically the middle parts are going to, you have a negative I and an I, and so the middle part's going to cancel out. So you're really just going to get negative I times I, which is going to be negative of -1, so that's +1, right? So basically, so what happens is, okay, so in the numerator part, this 1 minus 1, that cancels out, and you're left with the I and the I, so you have 2I, right? 2I divided by, okay, 1 plus 1 is 2, right? So obviously what happened was that the real part canceled out. There's nothing left of that, and you're just left with 2 over 2I, which is just, these cancel out, and you're just left with I, right? So what happened is the A came out to be 0, right? So the real part canceled out, and the B, the number that's multiplying the I, is just 1. So B equals 1. So therefore the answer is A. A equals 0 and B equals 1. So it's this one. Okay. So we have another problem done. Okay. All right. Another question is completed.